everyone, and thank you for joining us for this conversation. It is a pleasure, and I know the participants are still joining in as I see the number kind of going up. But such a pleasure to have this inaugural episode of ISDM's dialogue. As many of you know, ISDM has been working on the discipline of development management, and we approach development management not just as a set of tools, but a discipline that can truly build strong organizations and strong leaders. And hence, with that spirit, ISDM wanted to kickstart a monthly perspective series, on kind of dialoguing on key themes that face our sector today, and kind of unpack it through hot, provocative, practice-oriented conversations. And it is such a pleasure. I'm truly delighted to start this inaugural episode with the theme of good governance or good optics. Today's theme is deliberately provocative, and it asks a question which is so pertinent for all of us. Does governance genuinely strengthen institutions, or does it remain at a performative level? And that's what we would love to decode today. It's a conversation which does not question compliance, but rather why compliance alone is that enough. For us, governance is not just about structures, policies, reporting, fiduciary oversight. It is also perhaps a strategic capacity and a tool that organizations can use to build resilience and their own strength. And who better to have this dialogue with than the two people who are joining me as panelists in this dialogue today, Noshir and Gayatri. It is truly humbling as well as delightful to introduce both of them. Noshir, as many of you would know, Noshir is a widely respected voice. He works at the intersection of philanthropy, governance advisory, and legal compliance. Over the last 40 years as CEO of Center for Advancement of Philanthropy, he has consulted, advised, worked with numerous organizations, national, international, both in non-for-profit space as well as corporate spaces. And joining him is Gayatri. Gayatri is the CEO of Educate Girls. But even more than that, she gets with her immensely rich experience of being a leader of development sector who has guided organizations through growth, building systems, and impacts at scale. She has over 25 years of experience. She has worked with diverse organizations at intersection of education, sustainability, and community empowerment. So a very warm welcome, Noshir and Gayatri. So good to have you here for this first inaugural episode. Between the two of you, we've got it covered. We've got the expert, we've got the lens of governance, advisory, legal, and we've got the institutional leadership experience. So really looking forward to a very grounded conversation and a hot conversation. So without further ado, let's dive in to the tension that we are speaking about. Many organizations have visible markers of governance. Sometimes those markers are taken to be governance itself. So Noshir, in the social sector, governance is still often experienced through compliance, reporting, regulation. What, as per you, are the signs that governance is being treated more than just assurance, more than just signaling? What is that for you?
Where organizations are concerned, they always like to talk about how compliant they are. That remains a fact. So right now everybody is talking about, hey, listen, we got our 12A and ATG renewed. Hey, we got our FCRA renewed. Our accounts are audited, it's up on the website. I mean, so those are the things that people think is all about governance. But governance is the big picture, is the way I look at it. And the big picture is, and one of the ways I look at it is how everyone within the organization, and in the organization, I believe the leadership starts with the governing board. The governing board's job is to govern. Let me use that word, that the job is to govern. When you're talking of governance, their job is to govern. Unfortunately, sometimes I see these governing boards getting into management, which is not their business, but that's something we will discuss later on. I will not get into it right now. But then governance is about how they view their organization internally. One of the tests I see is how boards function at the board meeting. Typically, you look at the agenda to read and confirm the last minutes, to approve something. Does the agenda from time to time cover visioning exercises? Does it cover sustainability issues? Does it cover resources? Resources not just in terms of financial, but human, even board successions. A whole bunch of issues are in, and that's what governance is about. So governance is moving more than compliance, I agree with you. But this, as you rightly started out by saying, please do not neglect compliance, because I, for one, am the greatest proponent of compliance. Compliance equals credibility. But governance equals greatness for the organization. I'll just pause here because I know we can have more discussions on this, and probably Gayatri will add to what I have said.
Yeah, I'm going to use that as a segue. Gayatri, from the lens of being, leading organizations as a CEO, where do you think governance and that meaning of governance for you, what does that mean? Where does it genuinely help an organization beyond just compliance and reporting? What does that mean for you?
Sure. Sorry, before I start, there are a couple of messages saying that the audio is not clear or there's an echo. Okay, I think it's for a few people, not for everyone. Okay, sorry. Let me jump in to respond to your question. See, for me, there's compliance, as Noshir talked about, but that's a part of governance. Ultimately, for me, a governance is how well is an organization functioning, both in the short term, but with that vision of the long term. At the end of the day, if I'm just compliant, but every decision stays with me, for example, as CEO, that's not a well-run organization. How it does the growth or the implementation or the operations of the organization, how is it institutional-led rather than leader-led? Like for me, these are the various governance things that you can look like. So what are the mechanisms that you have in place in your organization to make sure that governance is happening at every level? You're checking to make sure that your program is operating as per timelines, as per the kind of impact that you want. Not because the donor's asking you, not because you have to respond to your board every quarter, or hopefully at least every quarter, but more importantly because you want to know, and as an employee or as a part of the organization, that things are going as per what you set out to do. So for me, governance is much broader than the optics that a lot of people follow through on, which is, we've got this compliance and like Noshir said, right now ATG and 12A cause a lot of stress, but it can't end there, right? So what is that institutional functioning, and how do you make sure that it's happening across the board?
Absolutely. It's like almost what I hear both of you echo is, it's not just the structures, but it's how it's embedding into the way you design, the way you build institutional level accountability, decision making. If I have to ask both of you, it's a question open to both of you from your perspectives. Are there one or two signals that immediately tell you whether governance is alive in an organization? What would those be?
Let's start with board engagement maybe. Is the board engaged enough? most of the time we find boards which feel that they are there only to attend maybe 4 board meetings a year or 2 meetings a year or whatever it may be, where agenda is most of the time rather dry and drab and with really nothing to contribute. So I keep coming to the idea of the board over here, because when you talk of board governance is primarily the role of the governing board. The CEO, CFO, etc. may drive the management side, but governance it begins. Of course, it should not end over there. The point is that everyone needs to know their roles and responsibility. And I'm afraid in most organizations that I've observed, the CEO has a very clear idea about his or her role in the organization. The CFO does. But board members, unfortunately, do not even know why they exist on the board. If you ask a typical board member, why are you there? Oh, so-and-so invited me and I thought it's a great organization. I thought I'll join it. That's not a good answer. That's not the reason why. I think, would you ever appoint a CEO or CFO without a job description? But we do appoint board members, governing board members. I'm emphasizing on the term governing board members without a quote-unquote job description. When the board member says, I really don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. I came in because I thought it's going to be a great experience for me. So-and-so invited me and I couldn't say no to this person. I'm not happy with that answer. I know I'm sounding provocative here, but this is reality, which we oftentimes miss out on. So governance is about first knowing why are you on the board? And what are you supposed to govern? And more importantly, do you build your capacity? We talk about, let's build capacity of our CEO. Let's build capacity of the CFO. Damn it, have you built your capacity as a governing board member?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm continuing to be provocative now. I'm going to stop before I get very...
Go all out, Noshir, but...
No, I'll stop here. I'll let Gayatri take off from where I am.
I love what Noshir said about boards, and I think I was lucky to be like a fly on the wall watching an international board, NGO run its board. And one big difference I found from boards that I had seen before was they all said, our organization, we, us, like the responsibility of that board was shared. It wasn't like, what are you doing? Why haven't you done this? And I just found that it was like a musical harmony, right? With everyone talking the same thing. Of course, they challenged and they disagreed, but it was always about us and our work. For me, how do I know governance is working? Is the less decisions I have to make. It's what does the team do without when nobody's watching, right? Because they know the structures that exist to make sure that they have the tools to do their work well, that they have somebody to go to when they don't know what to do, but most importantly, they understand the organization's culture. They know on their own what's not okay.
So I agree. The legal position is that a board's role is joint and several.
Yeah.
The position under law that everyone is jointly and severally responsible. So you're only echoing the practical side of what the law anyway tells you.
Yeah, absolutely. But Noshir, even then, how many boards would you have seen where people saying, "Tumne ye kyun nahi kiya? Why is this not done? I asked for this." Where is the support to make that happen? Like, I'm very lucky at Educate Girls, where every single board member, yes, they rap me on the knuckles, but they're also there to help. Right? So but I've not seen it in a lot of places, to be honest.
I have been on boards that have been good, bad, and the ugly. I don't even want to talk about the ugly boards, where I ultimately just got off. But it can be a horrendous experience where you have that kind of a situation where people neither know their roles nor responsibilities. It's all a matter of power driven and position driven rather than looking at progress and prosperity of the organization and the community at large.
Yeah.
So
you'll be happy to know, like, we're trying to add a new board member. 3 have said no. 3 people we approached, all three said, no, I don't have the kind of time you're expecting from us. So, and I honestly thought, like, wow, Ramon Magsaysay award we've got, people will line up to join our board. But I think we were very careful to say, this is what we expect from you. This is the kind of time. This is how we'll reach out to you. This is the support. So 3 people have said no. I'm hoping the 4th one will say yes.
Gayatri and Noshir, on this point, if I have to ask, because both of you have echoed, an effective signal is the way board engages with the organization. If I have to decode, obviously some of the conversation was decoding that. What does that translate into in terms of practices? So Gayatri, you did say that there is a job description for the board member. Yeah. I'm assuming that's what you're alluding to, time commitment, what you're supposed to give. So there is, and Noshir, that's what you alluded to. But if I have to say what else, because there was also a question in the chat, I think Andrew posted, also the board composition, different skill sets. But just building on this point further, given that governance, one great signal is an effectively engaged board, what are the board behaviors? What is the board constitution? What are the practices from that lens?
I can tell you in very simple terms, very practitioner lens, right?
Yes.
They show up for board meetings in person. They're not joining on their phone in a car saying, okay, I'm just boarding a flight. So you are prioritized as an organization. They feel responsibility for your outcomes, both pride, but also, oh gosh, this is not happening. How do we make it happen? And I think and when I say outcomes, not just programmatic outcomes, they help you with connections, with fundraising. Typically, people go only for that when it comes to a board. I want board members to raise funds for me. But you can raise funds if you're really invested in the programmatic outcomes of an organization also. I think the third thing is even outside of board meetings, right? Like when we need something, I literally have to send a WhatsApp and within 2 minutes, I get a message back saying, sure, we can speak now. We have a finance committee. Our CFO is not just mentored by members of the finance committee, but they take full responsibility for what we're putting up as budgets, our utilization, how we're thinking about investments, all of that. Like that shared ownership is something that I think really talks to an effective board.
Absolutely.
I think this point about responsibility is something I completely echo. I mean, and another unfortunate thing I've noticed is boards like to take responsibility when things are good. I mean, we did it. But when things go wrong, oh, the CEO goofed, let's sack the CFO.
Yeah.
I think that's not the right way to go about. It's like taking responsibility. We are all part of the team. And I have been on such boards where we felt that the CEO probably needed some hand-holding, needed some, kind of mentoring, or just general moral support. Or when we felt that somebody has been unnecessarily shortchanged. The board essentially should not get into management issues. My theory is that be available, but don't make a nuisance of yourself. So wherever I am a trustee, I have this theory of nose in, hands off. My nose is in the organization. I'm smelling everything that's going on. I'm getting a flavor of everything, but my hands are off. I leave that to the management to work on that. So I think these are some of the fundamentals of good governance, where the board takes responsibility in good times and bad times.
So I would also like to say that I think governance goes beyond the board also, right? As a management team, what is the governance structures you've created? As not just management team, I would say across the organization, what are those practices that are instituted in an organization that show that there's good governance? Like I was saying earlier, right? The less decisions that come to me, the more I know that the governance structures are working.
Gayatri, can you share some example from your lived experiences around this?
Yes. So again, like Noshir said, there's been good, bad, and ugly, right? The ugly side is where even the board doesn't know what we want to do. And when I say we, I mean organizationally. And each time there's a board meeting, there's a new kind of pathway created. So it's very confusing for the team. And I think that decision making then doesn't happen at the team level. Everything goes to the board because they are so scared to make a decision in case the board is now thinking differently. right? You start programs, you stop programs. Before you get the data, you get anecdotally some conversation saying, "Acha, ye nahi chal raha, let's try something else. Let's pivot." Pivot is such a fancy word we love to use. So I think, but on the flip side, if there's complete clarity, where the board is not telling you what to do, the board is being informed of what you do, the board is aligned on strategy, the board is aligned on what metrics we are measuring, and then how we do it across the organization, there's clarity. Culture is something that is there and understood across the board, because culture is what is going to stop me from doing the wrong thing when no one's looking.
Yeah.
And so for me, all of this constitutes good governance.
So I would like to add on one more layer, and which is often ignored, that yes, the structure is typically a governing board, then you have a CEO and CFO and the rest of the team members, etc. But many organizations, I recommend it, especially the matured ones, to also have in addition maybe something like an advisory committee, and just don't do it to showcase that we have that also. I mean, have an advisory committee only if you genuinely want it. And once again, be very clear in the role and responsibility of the advisory board member. But the benefit of an advisory committee, I refuse to call it advisory board, because the term board gives a certain connotation, legal connotation. I would say the advisory committee's job, as the name suggests, is to advise, because board members are not the repository of all the knowledge and wisdom in this world. So this is the sounding board you go to. Also, the secondary benefit is usually, if you have somebody on the advisory board, they can potentially become your governing board members at some point of time. I've been on 3 to 4 international boards. Seldom, if at all, I have ever been taken directly on the governing board. I have always been asked to join the advisory board. And this is what I call the honeymoon period, courtship period, where both get to know each other. I kind of try to see the culture of the organization, the ethics and values of the organization, how they function. They get a sense about what kind of a person I am. I'm kind of too much to the face, or I'm just a hands-on person, or what I am. And after maybe a courtship period of 3 years or whatever the term may be, they might, and it doesn't have to be mandatory, say, how about getting on on our main statutory board?
Yes.
Another thing is perhaps even having something like having an audit committee. Now, the audit committee may be mandatory for companies, especially where there are related party transactions and conflicts of interest, etc. It may not be mandatory for a society. It may not be mandatory for a trust. Maybe a Section 8 company gets affected by related party transaction. But why shouldn't a trust or a society also, just for the sake of good governance, have an audit committee?
Absolutely.
There are related party transactions, because there are a lot of dual entities that are being created now, for profit, working parallelly with a non-profit. So much related party transactions happen. Our audit committee is looking into that. Our conflict of interest getting managed. I've looked at a few organizations and they seem to be completely alienated from this idea. They say, oh really, we need to do this, is it? Of course we need to do.
Yeah. Noshir, on your first point, Gayatri, just gonna come to you, but totally resonate with this concept of advisory committee. We call it advisory board. In fact, at ISDM, we started this Women on Boards initiative, which is from the context of so many of organizations don't have this visualization of getting an advisory board together, advisory committee together. And over the last 3 years, with getting lot of women, talented women, invested women onto advisory board of these NGOs, it's been such a engaging journey, because it's a place to go to see, and someone asks like what skill set, what background, how can they help? Is it for comms? Is it for how to use data, AI? So many things, right, from the aspect of governance. So totally echo on that. But Gayatri, you were wanting to comment on
I was going to say that I have very deliberately not set up an advisory committee here. And I'll tell you why. Because not just for the sake of being provocative, which we promised to do. There's a lot that goes into managing our board itself, because luckily we have a very engaged board.
Yeah.
When we want to bring on somebody new to the board, of course we can't immediately bring them on always. Sometimes they have come with really good threads, and people on the board have gone through the process of interviewing them and engaging them, and we say, okay, this is the person we want to bring on our board. But like you said, sometimes you want to test, in which case we'll invite them to board meetings. They'll attend, we'll hear them out, but they don't participate in any decision making. But we have advisors. It's just the bringing them together as a group, setting up time, trying to manage everybody's schedules and calendars. It then becomes a whole different job altogether. So I think I've seen in places that I myself have been advised and on advisory boards, it's usually because their main board is a ceremonial board. It's like, acha, these are the trustees, the CEO or founder brought uncle and brother and mother-in-law and they formed a board. I'm being very, very mean when I'm saying these, but basically it's friends and family, and therefore you need an advisory board to actually get advice from. In my case, I'm getting that from my board, so I've not found the need to get an advisory committee also separately.
And when the board is formed, kind of going back to it, is it a very mindful selection of the board member, the kind of skill sets in the background and the experience they get?
Absolutely. So like the board member we're trying to bring on now, we want this person to be part of our finance committee. So we have a finance committee, people committee.
Yeah.
So we want this person to be understand finance, ideally be a chartered accountant, be based in Bombay, be a woman. Like there are certain criteria that we put down to bring in who we think would be the best candidate to come on.
Noshir, have you ever come across a program addressing board members, governing board members, building their capacities?
By a program addressing board members,
I mean, maybe they need to understand, it could be a behavior, it could be a perspective,
so
not really skills.
let me be candid over here. Most of the time board members think they are already the greatest people on planet Earth, and they are doing honors to the organization by, and there are exceptions to this rule, I admit. I mean, there are some who genuinely go in for serving, or more importantly, at least this is what I do. I mean, despite all my years over here, I join certain boards because I feel I'll get some learning experience. You should take your board role as a learning curve rather than saying, hey, listen, I'm the wise guy, I'm the Oracle of Delphi, and at the board meeting, if I have said this, then this is how it is. That's I don't think you can go on a board with that kind of attitude. I mean,
Absolutely.
You cannot claim to be the Oracle of Delphi. Sorry.
Absolutely. Just changing the drift from the board to Gayatri, you did mention one tangible metric for you is if I make less decisions. But let's say an organization is really governed well. How does it actually show up inside the organization? What would it translate into tangibly?
Yeah, so again, it might sound very specific, but I'll tell you how I look at it. One is everybody knows what they're doing, why they're doing, how it adds up, right? Two is as the CEO or even the leadership team, we have the data to monitor what's happening, where things are going off track, and what we need to do to step in. And third, I would say there are no surprises. Right? So tomorrow, if somebody is doing a third-party audit of my data or of my systems, I already know that they're not going to find anything because I've already checked it. I've already know my team would have put everything correctly, and therefore, no surprises. I hate these kind of surprises, so I have to make sure it's all good.
Wonderful. Noshir, what would it be for you?
I think a lot of us like to kind of claim that we are very transparent, we are accountable, but transparency and accountability also is not about just talking about the good things. We usually see annual reports which only give a very rosy picture. Organizations do not speak about their learning curves. I'm not saying these are failures. Never use the word failure. A failure is negative, but there are learnings. And I think it's important we share what didn't work, because unless you do that, how will others? And governance is a good part of talking about what worked. Yes, surely blow your trumpet on what worked, but don't feel shy of blowing your trumpet on what didn't work.
That's
This is the part no one seems to be talking about. They are almost shy. They are almost concerned and worried. Oh, we can't be talking of failures. But who's talking of failures? We talk about what didn't work so that somebody else will not repeat the mistake you made. And that's what is also good governance. That's sharing your learning experience.
Yeah.
This is transparency. Transparency means this kind of transparency where you do not fight shy of saying this didn't work.
Absolutely.
Let the world learn about it.
Absolutely. Beautiful points. I couldn't agree more with you. One of the things, I don't know if this kind of resonates, and this is a very overabused word, being a resilient organization. How to kind of face head on any crisis. Funder chala gaya, COVID aa gaya, regulation change ho gaya. How, and Gayatri, if you could share an example, but all that we've spoken about in the context of governance and governance showing up in some practices, is there somewhere you have seen some of these practices truly come to rescue in a way?
So resilience is about reinvention, in my opinion.
I would think it's more about how responsive you are. Yeah. Correct, Noshir, I agree with you.
So when sub-granting went away, then total organizations felt that now we are out of business.
Yeah.
They reinvented themselves to say, okay, we will now not sub-grant, but we'll do monitoring and evaluation for the donor. We will get into doing the due diligence and we'll become now something else. I think resilience is about reinventing. The laws will continue to, and it's a prediction I make that if you think things are at the bottom, it can hit new bottoms. I'm telling you, since 2020, look at the way FCRA has changed. Look at the way income tax has changed. Look at the way everything has changed. It's not easy. It's not a enabling legal environment. And I'm sorry, I'm being a little candid over here. I mean, it's almost disenabling. The laws literally cripple you. And yet, the organizations continue to function. And that is partly resilience, but it's also about reinventing yourself that, okay, the law has changed. We'll now adapt ourselves to fit into it. So we may not like the law as it changed, but well, the law is the law of the country. We will now fall in line, whether we like it or not. And if you don't like it, you always have a opportunity to challenge it in courts if you want. I mean, but that's another story. But otherwise, you fall in line, or otherwise close shop and go home. But which NGOs are not doing. We are resilient enough. For-profits are known to shut down, but NPOs somehow find a way to
continue.
As it's very rarely you'll find an NPO that says we couldn't do it.
We find solutions. In fact, we are known to be solution providers.
During COVID, how many organizations do you know that shut down? Donors stepped up, supported wherever they could. I know there were some may not have, but by and large they did. And organizations pivoted, right? They went into feeding, they went into making sure communities were protected, vaccine distribution. At that time, nobody looked at, no, this is outside of our strategic purview. They did what was needed, and it was the NGOs who could do that.
Absolutely.
And like one of the things that Educate Girls did at that time was actually running teaching outdoors in the villages under a tree. Our volunteers were from that village, they didn't have to travel, so they continued teaching. What then helped is during the Kumbh Mela, there were millions of people going there, so many sanitation workers with all their families. We set up learning camps there. So because we had learned during COVID, we could immediately, all the sanitation workers' children continue their learning. They didn't miss out. So it's resilience. The reason I changed it to say responsiveness is both in calamity and opportunity.
Absolutely.
How do you respond?
I would also say resilience is about risk management, essentially.
I was about to come to
There is always potential risk.
Yes.
The donor backs out suddenly. A CSR grant which was promised doesn't come in. Some issue has happened. Your FCRA got suspended. Risk management, and this is where everyone from the board to the CEO to the CFO to the lowest worker in the organization gets into the act that, okay, well, this is how it is. So, I mean, I know during COVID, there were many who said, we'll take a haircut on our salary. And because they said the work is more important, it's fine. We'll see when better times come, we will find a way to compensate ourselves. So, Resilience is about all this risk management. How do you mitigate risk and how do you handle risks?
Yeah. And it's like also kind of, textbook says have risk registers, have risk, learn
There is
from
too
your
much on
history.
paper that we do. I know of organizations that come to me and say, will you write this policy for me? And I said, why do you want it? And the answer, oh, the donor said we need to have it. Damn it, are you going to have a policy because the donor told you? Then I refuse to help them. It should come from within. Do you believe in this policy? If you're going to do this because your donor told you, then it's a bad idea. I'm not going to help you. But if you yourself believe that, yes, I need a procurement policy, yes, I need a HR policy, I need a governance policy, and if you feel this is the genuine felt need, I will handhold you on that. But if you come to me saying my donor told me and if I don't have this, the grant won't come, bad news. Then you're just putting paper there.
Absolutely. Noshir, on that front, the check in the box. I need a set of policies. I need a set of reporting. What makes organizations actually move from check in the box to this has really helped me? What have you observed?
I think the belief, that this is essential for me. That this is my go-to document when I'm in doubt. Let's say an HR policy. Whenever you're in doubt, it's your go-to document. Some policies are mandated under law. POSH may be applicable, so you will have to have a POSH policy, which is fine. But other policies, like a board governance policy, there might be some things in your trust deed, but it's limited. Some things in your memorandum, but you want to look beyond it. There may be no succession planning in your trust deed. A trustee is for life, let's put it that way. Once a trustee for it. But you are going to have a policy where you'll say, every 3 years, my trustee will rotate off. Not mandatory, but it's your go-to document.
Yeah.
That this is how we will be. This is what we will do. This is what we will not do.
Yeah. And do you think these are driven by the org leaders? Is it also a felt need from the field? Maybe Gayatri, you?
From all stakeholders. I
All
think it's
stakeholders.
all stakeholders, whether it's a donor or even a beneficiary. Today, even beneficiaries are important stakeholders. They want to know who and what is this organization that is working for our benefit. I think the beneficiaries too, if I may use that term, have become a little more empowered than they were, let's say, 20 years ago. I don't know, Gayatri, you may have more hands-on experience on this to know that.
No, I agree. And more they know, and they should know.
Gone are the days when there was a benevolent giver and a grateful recipient. Today everything is about partnership. The recipient needs the donor and the donor also needs the recipient, and everybody needs everybody. It's a partnership. Yeah.
There's this misnomer that SOPs are not there, and that I'm alluding to also the question. NGO sector needs some good SOPs. Gayatri, what's been your experience across organizations?
I don't think there's a lack of SOPs, to be honest, right? You look and you'll find, right now ChatGPT will throw one up for you. But even before that, like when it came to governance issues, like Noshir had written his book, right? We could just access and see, okay, this is what I need to do. Maybe my answer's biased because I also did work a lot in capacity building and therefore was looking at that day in and day out. But I honestly think there are SOPs. You need to customize it to what you need in your organization, and like Noshir said, what you believe you need in your organization. Right? It has that conviction has to be there. You can't take a template and say, I'm going to run with it. It won't work.
Absolutely. I'm going to pick up this query from Komal at this stage. What can be the triggers for the organization to reconsider the board composition?
I think if there is a felt stagnation on the board, if there is a board fatigue, and I've seen fatigued boards where they say, oh dear, one more meeting. Am I really needed? Must I really come for this meeting? I know. I think if there is fatigue, if there is stagnation, no new ideas are generating, the board is not feeling involved, I think that is a trigger. And I think that is where self-evaluation of board members is most essential. I keep always saying that we love to evaluate the CEO's performance, we love to evaluate the CFO's performance, we never evaluate board performance.
Yeah.
I've been on international boards where I had to go through self-assessments. How many meetings did I attend? What did I contribute at those meetings? Outside of meetings, what did I contribute?
Absolutely.
What did I do? I mean, here in India, somehow the perception is that the board member is beyond evaluation. He is the my baap. I mean, somewhere we have not gotten out of the colonial attitude of, the board is the boss.
Yeah.
I mean, the board is a partner in this whole journey of development that we are all working for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, in addition to everything Noshir said, if you think about what your strategy is, what your game plan is for the next, say, 5 years, 3 years, whatever, however long you can look into the horizon, and then see, therefore, what are capabilities that you need on your board? Are you getting that from your existing board or not? If you're getting some, not others, maybe it's more than replacing, it's adding to your board. If there are members, like Noshir said, who are not contributing to what you need, then it's time to shake hands and say, it's been great, but it doesn't continue this way.
And that's something so typical where you have non-contributing board members, but you're too shy to tell them to get off. Because, they happen to be somebody.
I was just going to say that.
You don't say, hey, listen, you're just occupying a seat there without contributing. So, I mean, I believe every board member has a serious obligation to contribute 3 T's, as I learned from certain boards: your time, talent, and your treasure. I remember being on a board ages ago where it was not the 3 T's. I was told about the concept of the 3 G's. This is long before 5G came to India. And but the 3 G's happen to be in the organization: give, get, or get off.
Get off. Yeah. Absolutely. Power dynamics is always a context, and that's a segue to the next section, which is about governance and funders. And basically, Noshir, let me start with you on this one. What do funders typically look for when they assess governance or compliance? What are they actually looking for?
So they will certainly start with the compliance part and ticking the boxes. You got your registrations in place. You are not kind of on the wrong side of the law. That is going to be fundamental. That's the absolute foundation on which the rest of the edifice is built. Beyond that, some funders also try to look for things like, what kind of a board do you have? And I know that international donors do give a lot of importance to who's on your governing board, because they feel the governing board is ultimately responsible. And indeed, that is the position in law, that the governing board is legally responsible. If you think that the CEO is responsible, in law it is not. The CEO is probably just a paid employee. The CFO is a paid employee. It's the governing board that any regulator, whether it's the income tax, whether it's FCRA talks about key functionaries and a chief functionary. Key functionaries, who is running the function of the organization. Income tax looks at who are your trustees if it's a trust, who are your directors in case it's a Section 8 company. Ditto with other registering authorities. So I think it's very important that people look at your board, your functioning. Also, I've seen some funders who also look at your policies, and whether those policies are just stagnant there because you want to show them off that we have those in place, or do you actually practice it? So I've come across one donor who actually said, when was the last time you invoked this policy? And there was a deafening silence.
Yes. A follow-up question on this before I come to you, Gayatri. If I have to put this question the other way around, Noshir, what do you think the funders should actually put more focus on when they kind of look at organizations?
I think if the funders have some ideas, they should actually tell the organization that do you have this in place? And if you have not, what is the reason why? And are you open to that change? And if the change is genuinely good, say yes. But if you feel the change is not desirable or goes against what the laws require in this country, also have the gumption to say no to the donor. This is another point that where we always say the donor, when the donor says you just do, you obey.
Yeah.
I know the number of times I have told my board members that I'm not happy taking this grant. They are asking for too much. I would rather say goodbye to this grant. Sometimes under compulsion, but then when that happens, I do record my dissent. That go ahead, I will go by the majority decision. But I would like to record my dissent. And God alone knows, in 2-3 years, they realized that it was a bad idea, because the donor was driving your organization. The donor cannot be driving your organization. You drive your organization. It is again about partnership. It's not about being donor driven. It should be organizationally driven. It should be programmatically driven. It should be the teams driven organization. And that's again what governance is about.
Absolutely. So Gayatri, same question, but in a context of, your experience as a sector leader, what kinds of governance expectations from funders have really felt genuinely helpful, and what have felt like more, transactional, documentation heavy?
So I think the really helpful ones are where it's not, so one, they get into understanding your strategy.
Yeah.
From strategy, they then would like to try and understand, therefore, what are the metrics that you're measuring? How are you getting that data? How are you verifying that data is correct? So really for them to understand how the organization is functioning. And the way they ask it was also so different, right? When it's a funder who's genuinely trying to understand versus a funder who's trying to reject proposals. Like, so you can tell the difference in how they ask the questions. The second is when they, who is on the board is less important to them than how involved is your board. So they do interviews with our board members without us in the room on those same strategic questions, like how are they doing this and how are you measuring whether this is happening. If a board member is at a superficial level, it will be very obvious. And third, when they go into the field and talk to our field team members saying, what is adding up? Like, is this all is everything that Gayatri's been pitching in this, with these fancy PPTs, is that actually translating down to the grassroots?
Yeah.
So I think when a donor comes to look at governance with these structures in mind, it's far more helpful. The paperwork, honestly, anyone in my team can blindly put together and send because it's all there. We've been asked every year by every donor, so that's the easy part.
Yeah.
Where it gets painful, and I can see there's a question on CSR donors, and then it's usually the ones who fall into this category, is when they start questioning why you're paying a field team member X. I was like, they are the least person you should worry about. Right, last person rather you should worry about, because they're paid almost like at the field level. They don't get paid like at the more senior levels. Why are you arguing on that? Like, let me pay them more, pay me less. They should be the ones they're the ones on the ground in the 48 degree, 50 degree summers, going door to door and seeing if there are girls left out of school.
True.
So when they don't get the culture and the ethos of who we are, then I honestly, like Noshir has said, he's also done this, but I have told a donor, this will not work for us, so maybe we cut our losses right now.
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. And this is, I think, a major problem with donors, where they are really caught up on how much salary are you paying to your people. And I always believe charity begins at home. First be good to your employees.
Exactly.
No point being so good to the outside world and treating your staff so badly. And yes, you may be paying a very good salary to your CEO and CFO, but does it percolate down the line? Is everyone getting their right compensation or remuneration or whatever term? And let's not fight. Gone are the days when people used to volunteer and the Gandhian approach. Today, NGOs are professional organizations.
Doesn't pay my children's school fees, right?
Exactly.
For my rent.
And today, in fact, if you're working in the non-profit sector, it works against the employee. When an employee tries to get a housing loan, they say, oh, but you're not in a corporate, we can't give you a housing loan.
Correct.
You're in an NGO. So they get real about these things. Look after, if you can't look after your own people, then there is no point looking after the world. Then you're failed, I feel. And this is where the donors need to start understanding. I mean, you are the guys who are like getting fancy salaries, sitting in air-conditioned offices, getting all the perquisites in the world and all the benefits in the world. And you're trying to, as you rightly put, somebody who's working in 40 degrees temperatures out in some godforsaken district without even clean drinking water, and you want to deny that person that salary. I think it's madness.
Yeah, absolutely. Building on this point further, how can funders actually support deeper capabilities? I did want to ask governance capability, but let me park that aside.
Yeah.
Even this entire perspective of institution building, supporting the institution, same people need some space to go and sit. They need maybe building further certain LNOD capabilities to upskill themselves on certain aspects, the various aspects of institution building.
I know we've been putting down a lot of donors. There are some fabulous donors who do just this, right? So one of our oldest donors who's been funding us since 2008, 2009, every year will give us fellows to work in the organization who come with certain expertise to build something in your organization, hand it off to your team. They will be like, we can tell them, okay, I want to build this tech product because I think it'll help us for ABCD, or I have this risk kind of donation I need, I don't know if this will work or not, and they'll say, we'll fund that. Tell us what nobody else will fund, we'll fund that. It's just like music, right? But so that's why I want to say there are donors and there are donors and there are donors, and I don't want to paint them all with the same brush.
But more like these are the practices that truly help.
Yes.
End goal is the same if you're talking about impact. So it's that.
Yeah.
Noshir, from your perspective, how can funders support deeper governance capability and not just the compliance readiness? What would that be?
I think first, understanding the organization and its needs. I think the donor only looks at, listen, I have this program, can you deliver? I think they need to get over that attitude. They need to, I used to see this happening at the Tata Trust ages ago when I joined the sector really, where my mentor in life and the person who was the director of the Dorabji Tata Trust at that time, late Mr. Rusi Lala, and I used to watch him function, when applicants came, I mean, he would actually say, I'll look at your proposal later. Tell me more about your work. I mean, what is your most important need? I mean, how are you looking after your staff? I'm talking of this some 35, 40 years ago. I think somewhere, and I hate to say this, some funding organizations have lost their heart. And this is again quoting my mentor who had written a book called Heartbeat of a Trust. And before he died, he says, I think the heart has gone out of the trust. Today, I feel somewhere the soul has gone out of some of the funding trusts. Everything is, we have a program, will you deliver? And you are almost looking at the NGO as a vendor of your service. You are saying, you are my agency. And that's what is happening under CSR. Okay, we need a CSR implementing agency. Right? They don't even use the word partner. Let's do a vendor agreement with them. I mean, you are the vendor. I'm going to give you money for this. I think you need to look beyond that. I think you need to get to know what are the problems the organization is facing, and there could be a lot of these problems. It may be infrastructural problems, it may be sustainability problems, it could be a whole bunch of things, and donors are only looking from their lens. It's time you start looking from the NGO's lens as well, and that would be the day I would look forward to.
Absolutely. Beautifully put. Gayatri, you're living it, but founder-led credibility to institution-led governance. And you did allude to it, so very important, right? Like you're creating this. Also, we keep hearing in this sector about, such amazing founder-led organizations, but now the need to kind of get the succession planning and get the next in line. And what about that? What role does governance play to help with this?
I think the beauty of me stepping in here is that a lot of these governance structures were already there. So while of course the founder brought and brings still a lot of credibility to what Educate Girls stands for, the organization is also known for its work. It's not just Safina Hussain's organization, but it's Educate Girls. The board was already there in place. The very engaged board, the structures within. I then had to do smaller things, right?
Yeah.
Build on to that. I did, like, if I had to start from scratch and say, okay, now I'm in charge. Now this is how it's going to be done. Forget everything you knew before. I would have really struggled. So
Yeah.
I was quite lucky, and I also have to say I did look at that before saying yes.
Great.
So Gayatri, I think I really congratulate organizations in the NGO sector, starting with Educate Girls, who actually practice this. This is something that the corporate world always requires the NGO to do it, but I've rarely seen corporates do that. I have known of founders of, and I'm not going to name them because I'll be crucified, but who talk of this, succession planning, and the founder should get off. They get off for a while and they come back, one way or the other. And so I've not seen this actually happen in the corporate world, but I've actually seen it in practice in the corporate, and I'm very proud of that fact.
And many good examples.
Absolutely correct.
We have 5 minutes. I will nudge participants to post any question to the panelists if they have anything else while we've been scrolling through them. But while that is happening, Noshir and Gayatri, if I have to ask for one final takeaway or a reflection, if there is a SPO leader listening into this conversation and they could do just one thing in the next year, to move from governance as optics to governance as capability, what should that be?
Gayatri, you want to take a...
Sure, I think it needs to move from, governance should not be based on the leader, the CEO or the founder. Governance needs to be across the organization. Everybody should feel a part of the governance structures. Right? I'm taking care of this, but this will be done well, effectively and ethically and all of that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's also within the organization creating an awareness about what governance is. I think every board member, the CEO, CFO, and even the team members need to understand that the emphasis of the organization is certainly on compliance, because compliance, you don't comply, you'll be out of business.
Yeah.
But governance makes your organization great. I think G for governance equals great, and compliance equals C for credibility. So I think I think everyone across, from the top layer to the down layer, must understand what governance is all about. Let them know that, every organization says that we have certain values. I think learn to value governance. Compliance is basically only a spoke that comes out of the hub. Governance I see as the hub from which one spoke, a very important spoke which holds the wheel together, is compliance. But there are several other spokes, and governance is the hub.
True. There are some questions that are posted on the chat. If I would pick up one, and I know we've alluded to it. Are potential board members ever asked, what's your personal purpose and mission alignment in joining our board?
In our case, yes.
I haven't seen that happen, unfortunately, but I'm glad, Gayatri, you have experience.
But I've also been asked that when I joined a board, like,
Excellent.
Why do you want to join? What's your personal reason? And it can't be that, I want to be on boards now, I think I can contribute there, but it needs to be a deep reason. I was asked, and we ask here also, like, how much time can you give? Like, these are our expectations. Is this like at the borderline of what you can give, or is this something that you'll prioritize? And third thing we ask is, what would make you uncomfortable on this board? Like, so just to understand their level of scrutiny, their level of being okay with ambiguity, but also at the same time making sure that everything's happening. So just to assess that.
Sure, that's great to know.
Which is weird, because on the one hand we pursue them and then we ask all these questions.
Well, the other question is more rhetorical. It's a comment, is why these days CSR funders treat NGO as a vendor in a turnover bracket.
It's for another time. I can have a full
That's another conversation altogether.
I can say one very quick answer: just the wrong people and in those positions.
I agree. I think companies some companies are still to understand what CSR is all about. In fact, it's unfortunate that CSR, which is corporate social responsibility for companies, also unfortunately has become C is for comply, S is strictly, and R responsibility has turned into rules. So they also have to comply strictly by the rules. So I don't blame them. So they just try to pass on the burden.
You need to have your own set of glossary published.
You can have a separate one on CSR someday, and I'm happy to join that conversation.
In a way, this is very conclusive to wrap up the conversation. Is governance process dependent or person dependent? But I'm going to make this almost like a concluding remark because we're going to be logging off. It's 5 o'clock already. But yes, what I'm taking away, and I guess we are echoing this, is, governance is not strongest just when it's, on paper, but it is really deeply internalized across levels. Definitely with the governing board, but definitely across levels as well. So truly, truly delightful for the conversation. Noshir, Gayatri, a big heartfelt thank you. And let's continue this dialogue and spread the silver lining more across our stakeholders. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Noshir. It was so good to chat with you again.
Indeed. My pleasure. I entirely enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Logging off. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, Gayatri. Bye, Noshir.
Bye.